Make it work. Okay, guys. Okay.
All right, I can hear now. Perfect.
You good?
Yeah,
okay.
We are good.
Good. A little bit of technical difficulty, but we're back innovating, right? That's the name of the game.
That's right.
That's right. So everybody, I'm happy here to have Kyle Wilson, VP of Product from Design Pickle, joining us today to talk to us about innovation. If you hear anything that Kyle says that resonates with you or you think is a little tidbits of gold, please go to your social preference or network of preference and tweet it, stream it, whatever you want to do, hashtag PHX Startup Week. We encourage questions. Please go to Whova and ask questions. You'll see my face pop back up here when you have 10 minutes left, and I'll have them all ready for you to go. So thank you, Kyle, for being here. I can't wait for the session. Take it away. Have fun.
Go into present mode first. You can share just the slides without sharing your notes.
All right, so we are just getting started here, and okay. All right, I'm assuming you all can see my screen. Now we can jump in. All right, so I apologize for some technical difficulties getting in here today, but I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Kyle Wilson, and it's really an honor and a privilege to speak here at PHX Startup Week. This is a really awesome event, and just to be a part of the event with you and spend a little time with you as part of your day is something that is really, really special. So the theme of thinking, defining, and creating is really all about innovation. So our time today is going to really focus on what I'm defining as the 10 essentials of innovation. I always like to give folks a heads up regarding the style of presentation. It helps know sort of what you're in for the next 45 minutes or so. So in our presentation today, I'm going to use a structured number format. And why am I doing this? Well, it's because I have seen and listened to a lot of speakers at events. And I'll tell you, most speakers that I have seen are not great. In fact, most have not been really good at all. So in an effort to basically be a little bit better, or maybe not be as, or maybe suck less in some ways, I use a numbered format, so at least you can track the progress and estimate how much time you have left in the presentation. All these essentials of innovation really stem from a combination of my professional experience, other talks, events I've attended, mentors of mine, and then lots and lots of reading here. All right, so as stated earlier, currently I'm the Vice President of Product here at Design Pickle, headquartered here in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona. I am a transplant to the area. I moved here about a year ago from Seattle in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. My family and I absolutely love the area and are super excited to be part of the Valley and just be a permanent resident here. And that does include the summer months. I know it is a little weird, but I will take warm weather any day over months of gray and 40 degrees and rain. So at Design Pickle, I lead all things products. This includes engineering, product management, product marketing, product design, and also to our global creative and design operations. Prior to Design Pickle, I worked at Cisco Systems and Microsoft. I have been a lot of things in my career. I've been a product marketer. I've been a designer, product manager, corporate strategist, and I've advised startups in the past. And in my career, I have learned a lot about innovation, right? Working on early stage products and new ventures, anything from software-defined networking to cloud services to mixed reality and artificial intelligence. And I'd like to take a lot of what I have learned in that knowledge and pass it on to you so that you may go and be the next big startup coming from Arizona, right? And hopefully change lives in doing so. On a personal note, I have a beautiful wife, Laura. I have 2 kids, my daughter, Layton, who is 4, son, Carter, who is 1. So of those of you with kids, or you have friends with kids or family with young kids, I'm sure you can imagine how busy my life currently is at the moment. All right, so before diving into the core of the presentation, I first want to define the word innovation. Innovation to me is similar to strategy. It's sort of become a buzzword that's used. In fact, one could argue, and I believe in this, that it's really become a buzzword of the decade in terms of the world of business, right? It's sort of the go-to canned response for founders and executives. And it's really overused, right? And this generalization of the term has led to really a loss of understanding of what it means to really and truly be innovative. So I'd like to just sort of eliminate some of that noise and help you all put action and intent behind the word that everyone is talking about, but few are actually doing correctly. So in the context of this discussion today, when I say innovation, I'm referring to the disruptive radical innovation, right? This is the innovation that Clayton Christensen talks about. Products create new value networks. And for those of you who are not familiar with Clayton Christensen, he's a Harvard Business School professor and is really one of the leading thinkers and minds around strategy and innovation. I am ignoring, and I would also encourage you to do the same in terms of ignoring sustaining and incremental innovation. This aims to make small just improvements and just slight improvements to make your products and services better. Because it is that radical innovation that changes lives, and I believe that's what you all aspire to do. So, but if you're here to learn about sustaining or incremental innovation, you are welcome to stay, but you're probably not going to find this talk too much fun or informative from that standpoint. All right. So innovation is not a flash of insight. So when you think of the word innovation, the symbol that comes to mind, I think for most people, including myself, is sort of a light bulb, right? It symbolizes that flash of insight or an original idea of a new concept, product, service from that standpoint. But innovation is not an idea or some flash of insight that people get. It's much broader than that. Yes, ideas are important. That's true. But it's the system that you create around that fosters ideas and allows them to really become real. That's the important part. And that's what innovation is all about, right? And for innovation to be real, it must lead to some level of monetization, right? And some sustained value creation over time. It can't just be that idea, right? And when I say monetization, what I mean by that is money in the traditional terms. And if you're in an ad-supported model, it's basically time, right? So monetization in terms of time and money from that standpoint. And this is innovation, right? It's more than an idea or just a flash of insight that strikes you. So innovation is a process. It's not a big, scary, complex thing or something that happens to just a few lucky folks. In fact, it's been boiled down to these 5 bullet points that I'm showing you here today. And this was done by MIT Sloan, which really defined these essential steps and creates a structure, right? And demystifies what some have believed to be this complex thing down to a really simple process. So it really starts with an idea generation and mobilization of that idea. Successful ideas are fueled both by pressure to complete and the freedom to explore. And once that idea is generated, it's passed to someone else outside the originator to move along and mobilize it. Advocacy and screening, right? At this stage of weighing the idea's pros and cons and weeding out ideas that really lack potential or aren't really based on anything real to a business. Experimentation. This is really testing the sustainability of the idea. This is determining whether or not a customer would use your product or not. And you may find that some ideas are just awesome, right? But they may be a little bit ahead of their time, or they're just not right for your particular market that you're targeting with your businesses. Commercialization and implementation. At this stage, you need to look at your customers to really verify your innovation actually solves the problem. And if it does, you should then measure the cost benefits of implementing that solution. And last is Diffusion and implementation, this is really around just the process of gaining acceptance and really making it come to life and come real from that standpoint. All right. We've now defined innovation, and we've walked through basically that innovation is not an idea, but it's more of a process. So let's jump into really why we're here today and learn really more about the 10 essentials of innovation. I'm hoping this is really going to help you in your new ventures, as well as I really hope it helps guide you as an innovator, right? Founder and leader of the next great startup coming here from Arizona. So starting off, number one, innovation starts with the desire to build and build with purpose, as opposed to necessarily make money. Building with purpose is how you change lives, right? And how you can potentially change the world in the sense of what you're doing. And it's my belief that if you happen to change lives, then you have a really, really good chance to make money doing it. But if you do start off with the sole desire to make money, more than likely you are not going to do either. You're not going to make money. You're not going to be able to build with purpose. You're not going to be able to change lives in doing so. And achieving none of these things means that you're going to have a very high likelihood of failure with your endeavor. So my first essential guide to innovation is to build with purpose and determine how you can make an impact and really change lives in doing so. You know, here are a few companies that I think really are good examples of companies that build with purpose. You know, working at Microsoft, Microsoft wanted to democratize computers, right? They wanted to bring computing power to everyone. You know, they wanted to have a computer on every desk and in every home. You know, that's the impact and that's the purpose that Microsoft made. You know, Google wants to democratize information, making information available to everyone. Etsy want to democratize access to entrepreneurship, right? Making it easier for artists to start micro businesses and reach global markets of consumers. You know, these are just a few examples of companies that build with purpose. And then here at Design Pickle, you know, we want to democratize creative services, right? Making graphic design, custom illustrations, and other creative services available to everyone, right? This isn't something that just big companies have. This should be something that all companies and businesses have access to. As you can see, with all these companies, they build with purpose, and they've been successful in doing so. Also say too that it's pretty humbling to compare Design Pickle with Apple, Google, and Etsy. But the key takeaway and thing I want you to remember from this slide is that it really starts with building with purpose, right? And this is something that I've just noticed in my career, that if you truly want to change lives, you truly want to have purpose, then it really starts with having that meaning as a first step of innovation. It's not focused on necessarily money or riches from that standpoint. All right, number two, the second essential element of innovation is to create a mantra and not a mission statement. Mantras are basically 2, 3, maybe 4-word explanations of your product and why your business should exist. So to start with this, I'm going to use an anti-mantra example. This is Wendy's mission statement, and I have nothing against Wendy's. In fact, my daughter loves Wendy's and their Frosties, so I have nothing against Wendy's. I just think this is an interesting example to highlight here. So Wendy's mission is to deliver superior products and services for their customers and communities through leadership, innovation, and partnerships. I'm assuming most of you have been to Wendy's at some point in time in your life, or you are familiar with Wendy's. As mentioned, I've been to Wendy's a handful of times in my life. I've eaten at a Wendy's restaurant. I've driven through their drive-thrus. And what's interesting is that in every single occasion, it's never occurred to me, not even once, that what I'm experiencing in and participating in is leadership, innovation, and partnerships. I just wanted to go to Wendy's to get a quick bite to eat, right? I just wanted to get a double stack. I wanted to get some fries, a drink, and maybe a Frosty when I was there. And that was it. Additionally, too, the company has been pretty savage in terms of how it behaves on social media. I'm not sure if many of you follow Wendy's on Twitter, but if you do, you've probably seen that they are pretty ruthless and aggressive in their takedowns of brands, people, and just the good old internet troll that's out there trying to provoke them. And here are just a few examples here on the screen. My personal favorite is on the left from Thuggy D. This dude sort of just got torn down and had to basically shut his Twitter account down as a result of this social media engagement with Wendy's. You can also see here on the right, when someone's asking Wendy's, where's the nearest McDonald's, Wendy's posts a trash can. Now, look, I agree. These are actually pretty funny examples, and I've actually found a lot of joy and humor reading through some of the blog posts around Wendy's Twitter account. But my question to you is, like, does this really stand up and support the company's mission statement, right? Does it support delivering superior services for customers and communities through innovation and partnerships? And that's really the problem with mission statements, right? So my recommendation to you is, as you innovate with your companies, not to make a mission statement, but rather create a mantra in doing so. So Wendy's mantra should be quality fast food, right? The mission statement highlighted superior quality products. The mantra is really about quality fast food. I have Nike on here. Nike has a great slogan. I would actually say it's one of the best slogans out there of just do it. But just do it is a slogan, right? That's not a mantra, right? A mantra explains why you exist. So the Nike mantra is authentic athletic performance in my mind. And then I have UPS on here too. So when you absolutely and positively want something delivered to someone somewhere, what does UPS stand for? Well, UPS stands for peace of mind, that they guarantee that they'll be delivered to that individual. So as you're deciding and defining the type of meaning that you want to make, find those 2, 3, maybe 4 words that describe why and the purpose of why you should exist. It's not going to be a 50, 100-word mission statement, but rather it's that 2 to 4 word mantra. All right, number 3. The third essential element of innovation is sort of forward thinking and your ability to jump the curve. So to be clear, what I'm saying here is not to stay on the same curve, line, or growth trajectory that you may currently be on today. It isn't about trying to do things a little bit better or make those slight, improvements to your business. Rather, what I'm talking about in jumping the curve is that it's that disruptive and radical innovation. It's not that incremental sustaining innovation that I said was out of scope today. So when I worked at Microsoft, I was working for Microsoft HoloLens and mixed reality business applications. And when I was working on this, we were not trying to make a slightly better augmented reality device, right? Or a better business application. We're actually trying to jump the next curve of personal computing to create a brand new category of devices and applications that truly blended the physical and digital worlds. It wasn't about creating a better virtual world and virtual reality or better overlaying information onto the real world and augmented reality, but rather we were trying to unlock the links between human beings, computers, and machines, and how the two interact in environments to truly light up and enable contextual computing experiences. So years ago, I read about and someone shared with me, I read about the evolution of the ice business. And for some reason, this example stuck with me. And I think it's a really good example and demonstrates the importance and need to jump curves. So I'm going to start with ice business 1.0. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was this ice harvesting business in the United States. So during the winter, ice harvesters in northern states would go to a frozen lake, a pond, and cut out these blocks of ice. And in 1900, 9 million pounds of ice were harvested. And innovation at the time was really defined by how do we create bigger horses, or how do we get more horses? How do we get bigger sleighs to cart the ice off? How do we get sharper saws? But at the core, it was fundamentally the same process, right? It was, you have to wait for winter to come, you have to live in a cold weather environment, and you have to cut blocks of ice out of lakes and ponds. 30 years passed, and now we have ice business 2.0. We now have the invention of an ice factory. This was a major technological breakthrough at the time as part of the Industrial Revolution. It didn't have to be winter anymore, nor did you even have to live in a cold city, right? People could freeze water centrally and deliver it to folks via basically an ice delivery person with an ice truck. And this was a huge breakthrough for people in the time, right? People were no longer limited to the limitations of climate, right? You no longer had limitations of what season you were in. You could have ice anywhere, anytime, with the creation and invention of an ice factory and the ability to deliver that. Another 30 years go by and we have Ice Business 3.0. Now, I know you're all probably thinking this. I'm not referring to Disney's Frozen. You can probably tell when I was doing this presentation, my daughter was all about this, but rather the industry jumped the next curve again with the invention of the refrigerator. It was no longer a matter of, can someone freeze water? Can it be put on a truck? Can it be delivered to people? Now everyone could have their own personal ice machine and their own personal ice factory in their homes. And here's the interesting thing about this story, and all three of the ice curves shared with you. So 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. None of the companies that were ice harvesters became ice factories. And none of the ice factories became refrigerator companies. And the reason why, right? It's because these companies define themselves in terms of what they could do, not what it could be. So my advice to you is please do not do this. Rather, define yourself and define your businesses based on the benefits that you provide and the purpose that you create to change your customers' lives. If you define yourself as we cut blocks of ice out of lakes, you're going to forever remain an ice harvester. If you define yourself as we freeze water centrally, you're going to remain an ice factory. And then if you define yourself as a widget, that you make a widget called a refrigerator, then you will forever stay on the refrigeration curve. So great innovation occurs when you get to that next curve. When you go from other examples like the telephone to the internet, or when you go from a laser printer to a 3D printer, or when you go from government issued money to cryptocurrencies. And afterwards, if you want to talk cryptocurrencies, I am happy to engage with that. I have a big passion around that. So happy to talk to anyone about cryptocurrencies any other time. But key takeaway from here is that great innovation occurs on the next curve. All right, number 4. The fourth essential element is to roll the dice. These are qualities of great products and innovations. So great innovation goes deep, and depth is defined as lots of features and lots of functionality. So what you're viewing here on the slide is something I'm actually wearing today, which is a reef fanning sandal. Now, most of you are probably thinking to yourselves, like, how can a sandal be innovative? How can a sandal go as what I defined as deep or depth in terms of features and functionality? Well, this is arguably probably the deepest and most functional sandal that's ever been made, right? And I'm going to tell you why. Is that every sandal has one primary purpose, right? Is to protect your feet and to provide cushion for that. But also too, if you look close, you'll see in the middle of the reef fanning sandal is you're going to find a metal clip. And this clip is a bottle opener. So if you're on a boat, if you're at a tailgate, if you're in your backyard, you no longer have to go search for a bottle opener, right? It's right there on your foot when you need it. So this sandal now has twice the depth and 100% more functionality than any other sandal in the world, right? Reef was able to do that. It was able to go deep in terms of features and functionality. All right, here's another example. So great innovation is intelligent. So when you look at this product, so when you look at a product and service, what I mean by intelligent is that it's really there and it's smart, not in the sense of like brains or intelligence there, but it's intelligent in the sense of it looks to address the customer's pain point, right? Like it's like the customer saying, like, somebody finally understood my problem and someone was able to address it. So here on the screen, what I'm sharing with you is actually a photo of a Ford GT 500 Shelby Mustang. For those of you who may not be familiar or that into sports cars, this car is really a beast, right? It has, I want to say it's like 650 horsepower. And for those of you maybe not familiar or rate horsepower in sports cars, 650 horsepower is, I want to say, equivalent to about 7 Toyota Priuses. So you can see this car has a lot of juice behind it. I would love to purchase one of these cars someday. It's not a midlife crisis thing or anything like that. For some reason, I've always just loved these sort of cars growing up. And it's something I've always set my mind, like one day I'll be able to get one of these. But as someone in their mid 30s, right, 2 young kids, this car is not really a super practical car. My life is already chaotic, as I described, and I can only imagine the challenge of squeezing 2 car seats and 2 kids in the back seat with this. However, if I were to buy this car, and one day my son may drive it at some point in time, and if his actions today are any indication of what he's going to be like as a teenager, this is not a good idea. Just for the sake of people in the greater Phoenix area, it is not a good idea to have my son behind a wheel of a car with 650 horsepower. But Ford here has made a very intelligent product, and that product is called MyKey. And what MyKey does is that it enables you to control and program the vehicle safety features and control safety settings, even when you're not in the car or behind the wheel. So, and one of the things you can do is you can actually program the top speed in the car. Thus, if I were to buy this car and we were to keep it long enough for my son to drive it, I could program it to max out at 25 miles an hour. Like this is an example of a very intelligent product, right? This product understands my problem and my pain point and solves it for me. All right, next, great innovation is complete. And completeness is really around the totality of the product. In the software business, it is not just the software you create. It is the purchase flow. It is the onboarding process. It is in-product guides. It is the webinars you produce, the developer documentation. It's the developer ecosystem and your customer support. It's really that totality and functionality and that user experiences that make that product complete. So it's not just a point solution, but it's the end-to-end holistic view of the product. And then great innovation is empowering. Innovative products and services make you more human. They make you more creative. They make you more productive in your tasks and any job to be done in the workplace or in life. They enhance you as a user. And innovative products can change lives in doing so. So what I'm showing you here is a MacBook. I use a MacBook at work. I think it's an awesome product. And I've sort of become one with my MacBook. It's really part of my workday. It's how I get stuff done. And it becomes and it's really become part of my personal and professional self in some ways. It makes me feel as a user more creative, more powerful, more productive when using it. Now, I worked at Microsoft. I absolutely loved my time at the company, and I'm a big fan of its products. It really is truly an amazing company. But with a Mac, I've never felt like I was fighting against an operating system like I did with Windows when I was using a PC. Like at times I felt like when I was using Windows, it was almost like I entered into a ring and had to fight or wrestle sometimes with Windows in order to just get my stuff done during the day, just to be productive. And I don't even want to go into, and I could share actually so many stories with you in terms of like the automatic updates, right? I'm sure most of you who have used a Windows PC in the past, it's like the system was almost watching you work and was like, hey, you're in a rhythm right now. You're in the middle of something super important. Now is the optimal time to run an automatic update. Let's do that right now. Now, I will say this, Windows has gotten a lot better, even when for the 7, almost 8 years that I was there, right? They made a ton of improvements. But for the time, I felt like it was just a battle on my PC to be creative and productive. So when you're building products and you're innovating, make sure that your innovation is empowering. And the last piece here is that great products are elegant. It's like someone actually cared enough to create a user experience that really just supported the user in the end-to-end flow. So a good example of that in my mind is Airbnb. And what I'm sharing with you here is Airbnb's landing page. In my mind, this is actually just really simple and elegant. It has visual clarity. It is minimal in design. And as a user, I do not feel overwhelmed when I look at this landing page. The messaging is clear. It is super easy to understand. It is straightforward and actionable. the design follows the traditional sort of double Z pattern, right? Which aligns to how humans read, right? Going from left to right, diagonal, and left to right again. So it draws the eyes across the page. The imagery on the page also triggers an emotional response. You can see there in the white box the word unique. And you can see on the right, just the image is that's a very unique destination. That's a unique home that you could potentially stay in. And this is not overwhelming, right? With little cognitive effort, I can really identify the area on the page to interact with, right? It's the light dark contrast there. So in the light box, it sets a clear goal for me to search for a unique place to visit and create memories and experiences. And this is important, right? Building elegant experiences is not only about the visuals that you have, but it's also about reducing that cognitive load that the user needs to achieve the goal. So as you go through your professional life and as you build with purpose and you actively work to jump the curve, just ask yourself one question is am I rolling the dice? Am I creating something that is deep, something that is intelligent, something that is complete, empowering, and elegant? All right, number 5, great innovation does not let perfect be the enemy of good. Going back to my ice example, with the invention of the first refrigerator, it was not perfect. There were elements that were not good at all. In fact, some were probably just crappy with that. Same thing too with the first laser printer, right? It wasn't perfect. There are definitely elements that are not good with that. When I was working at Microsoft on HoloLens and mixed reality applications, there were some ergonomic issues with the device, right? It had a limited field of view. It had short battery life. It lacked color uniformity. And usability over long periods of time during the day was just tough. Lots of elements were not great. But if we waited for the perfect product, right? Full accessibility, full field of view, all-day battery life, perfect color uniformity, we would have never have shipped the product. And this is an important lesson I want to share. Like having a product in market is much better than being perfect. So the question you're probably asking is, okay, well, when is a product ready to ship? And my advice to this is ready to ship once you have tested and validated your riskiest assumption. So because you do not want to spend months or even years building a product to find out, hey, I went wrong on the most critical assumption that it solved the problem and someone wanted to use this. So make sure you test that. And when you test that and you can prove that it solved that problem, then it's ready to ship. However, when you jump the curve, it is okay to have elements of your product that are not great, right? As we talked about, but you cannot ship crap to market. It is important your product and service works and solves a core problem, right? It sets out to solve the elements that are key to your user. And it's okay if some elements of these are not good or even great at all. However, I'm going to make one caveat to this. If you are the founder, CEO, executive of a biotech or medtech company, you're the only ones to ignore what I'm saying here. You definitely have to be perfect, and you have to be perfect all the time. So you're the only one. Everyone else, do not ship crap to market. It's okay to not be great. Everyone except for biotech or medtech can do that. All right, number 6. I remember first hearing and reading about this phrase. This is a long time ago when I was in college, but it's something that stuck with me from Chairman Mao when he was working to lift restrictions in China in the 1950s on Chinese intellectuals. But it was the saying of letting 100 flowers bloom. And what that means in the context here of innovation is that when you start innovation, you may think, or when you start a product and you start building a product, you may think you know exactly who your user is. You may think you know exactly who your customer is. You may think you know exactly what the customer should do with your product. I can share with you, I've been surprised multiple times in my career. People who I didn't think would use a product ended up using it. And those that I thought were going to use it did not use it at all. And those that did use the product ended up using it in much different ways than I could have ever expected or even thought the product would be used. Now, in this situation, you may initially be like, I was initially disappointed. I'm like, I did all this research and I was totally wrong in all this work. But what I found out later is that's not the case. If this does happen to you, I encourage you not to go through the sadness and disappointment I went through, but I would encourage you just to be excited because people are using the product and service that you built. People found enough value to exchange time or money for it. I would scream hallelujah that this is happening. Like people are actually using your product, which is really amazing. And because of that, like people are using it, and it really comes down to what the customer says. Like your branding and positioning is ultimately really what your customer decides, right? It's not what you decide or you think it is. So even though, so I'm gonna give an example. This is a little bit before my time, but I think it's a good foundational example here. Is that, so before Apple was the most valuable company in the world, what's its market cap? Like north of $2 trillion or something like that right now. But when Apple launched the Mac years ago, the company thought it had a machine for productivity to compete against Microsoft and Windows. They thought it built basically a spreadsheet, a database, and word processing computer to really go compete with the company. And what the company found out is that none of these were accurate. Not a single one of the three items were correct. And so what made Mac successful and ultimately ended up saving the company from going bankrupt was this functionality called PageMaker. And PageMaker created basically this field of flowers for Apple, which led to the idea of desktop publishing. And this is what saved Mac and Apple. It was not a spreadsheet. It was not a database. It wasn't a word processor. The company, if the company were to have focused on these things versus desktop publishing, I don't think Apple would be around today. And with Apple dead, I suspect this world of devices and technology would look drastically different. I mean, I really can't imagine a world without an iPhone, iPads, Apple Watch there. So my request to you and my guidance is to let those 100 flowers bloom, but do not be proud. Take your best shot at defining the functionality, who your target user is, and your branding and positioning. But when you release your product and you get it in the hands of your customers and your customers use your product, if they say it is X, in the case of Mac being a desktop publishing, then it is X. Like you've built a desktop publishing machine. Declare your victory, celebrate it, that people are using your product, they're buying it. And now you are the leader and you're building the next best X, or in the case of Apple, the next best publishing machine, desktop publishing machine. All right, number 7, do not be afraid to polarize audiences. So great products, any great service, great innovations tend to polarize people. So what I'm showing you on this slide is an illustration of DVR. So I will admit, people like me, I like to watch a lot of mindless television, and I do this to decompress from my day. And as a result, I absolutely love DVR. Both my wife and I love bad cable TV. I'm going to trust everyone on this call here. If there's one thing not to tweet out, is probably this. And I'm not going to be afraid to admit it, but I watch a lot of bad reality television shows with my wife. She loves them, and I love spending time with her. So by default, I watch them with her. I've probably seen every episode of The Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, and I've probably seen every episode of The Real Housewives across probably every city that they're in. I can't even tell you all the cities there, but I've consumed definitely my fair share of bad television over the years. But the great news is that I don't have to watch advertisements with these shows, with DVR. I could just skip over that. So what was an hour is now like 35, 40 minutes of just bad reality TV to decompress after the day. On the flip side of that, there are people who that absolutely just hate DVR. Folks who hate DVR typically work for large brands, or they work for advertising agencies that rely on television as a core stream of revenue for their business. Because people like my wife and I, we never watch advertisements anymore. We fast forward through all of the TV ads as we watch The Bachelor and Real Housewives. So great products and great innovations will polarize audiences. So if you're a TV advertising agency, you strongly dislike DVR. If you are my wife and I, similar to us, you love it. And we can't go back to watching TV and advertisements really ever again. And here are a few other brands, just for some examples that really, have polarized people. You can love and hate Walmart, Nike, Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, Smith & Wesson, Fox News, CNN, etc. But it's important to note, I'm not recommending that you intentionally upset people or you really piss them off with your products. Rather, what I'm telling you is that great products and innovations have this tendency to polarize audiences. Often customers love or hate great products and great innovations. So don't be afraid with your products to polarize audiences. And if you need validation for this, research does support this statement. So if you do believe research from Harvard Business Review, I think that's a pretty reputable source, then I think it's okay for you to polarize audiences. All right, number 8. What great innovators do is they frequently and often take an iterative approach to product development. They go back to the drawing board and they try and try and try again. So as you build your product or service with purpose, it isn't about defining a minimum viable product. Rather, it's about experimentation. It's how fast can you improve your hypotheses. Great innovators take version 1, they get it to their customers, to a subset of their customers, they receive feedback and they iterate on it. They make version 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 2.0, etc. I think you get my point with that. And this is really hard to do because essential to innovation is that great innovators are always in denial. You need to be in a constant state of denial to be a successful innovator. Because as you iterate with your product and you continue to try and try again, you're going to have a lot of naysayers. And those naysayers and those people are not going to believe in your vision. They're going to tell you it cannot be done. It shouldn't be done. The product or service isn't necessary. But what is important is that you ignore these people. So as you look to launch your product to market, you then flip the switch and you start listening to your customers and you evolve it. As customers provide feedback, you look to change it and you iterate, you evolve it, and you try and try again, and you continue to change it as you go. All right, number 9. This is really all the marketing you're going to need to know, is that you need to provide basically unique value to your customers. So this is a very simple chart. And I actually borrowed this chart from an article I read, which was the lessons I learned from Steve Jobs. And on the vertical axis, you can see here, it measures uniqueness. And on the horizontal axis, you see it measures value. This is a very basic 2x2 matrix. You all could go out and you could hire any large consulting firm, McKinsey, Bain, BCG. I've worked with a lot of them in my career. When I was in corporate strategy, I worked with a lot of folks that came from those environments. And they would spend months assessing your business to basically tell you, and you would spend a lot of money for them to tell you that you need to be in the upper right-hand corner of this chart. So let's quickly walk through this here. So in the bottom right corner, this is where you have something of great value, but it's not really unique, right? In this position, you typically compete on price. This is sort of a commodity, right? This is your basic mobile device or PC that has software running on it. There's really no differentiation in terms of the hardware it runs on. In the opposite corner, in the upper left-hand corner, this is where you have something unique, but you're the only one doing it. And unfortunately, this is really only valuable to you. The market doesn't see necessarily the beauty in what you're doing here. I would highly recommend, do not fall trap to this. Do not fall in love with an idea if there is not a market or there is not customer demand and value following that. In the bottom left-hand corner, this is not a great place to be. This is where your product and service is not valuable or unique. This is really the worst of the locations. If you choose to compete here, I don't really have anything great to say other than don't do it. If you do compete here, you're probably not going to make it in reality. And the last piece here is the upper right corner. This is where you have products that are both unique and valuable. This is where you become a rainmaker. This is where you change lives. And you've done something special here. And here are just a few examples, right? Netflix with video streaming, Uber with transportation, AWS and cloud computing, Airbnb and hospitality, and Square with payments. So if you're an engineer, make products that are unique and valuable. If you're a marketer, communicate to the world how your product is unique and valuable. And last but not least, number 10, I hope you're still with me. It's very difficult in these virtual environments to know if you're still here or not, but perfect your storytelling. The young me, I will admit, I was naive and believed that data and ideas stood by themselves. People don't get it, that's on them. But that's not the case. People need to be led. And as a great innovator, not everyone's going to immediately see what you're doing and where you're going to connect the dots between point A and point Z. And as a result, you need to be the master of art of pitching and perfecting your storytelling. This is both verbal and visual. And this is true whether you're an entrepreneur, founder, CEO of an early stage startup, like many folks in the room here, or even if you work at a corporation. Your ability to tell stories and get people to buy into your vision, your strategy and direction is really critical for success. So I'm not going to go through this, but what exactly is storytelling? Storytelling is the process of really where you use facts to communicate a narrative for something here. You can see here storytelling is about information in a narrative. It's about what you communicate to your customers. It's emotional and engaging. It motivates your team. What it is not a 10,000 word article. It is not your sales goals. It's not an advertisement. It's not about your brand. It's not a sales pitch, right? So storytelling is really an art form, right? It stimulates imagination and passion and creates a sense of community for listeners, right? So storytelling is really about painting like this picture with words to get people to buy in. And why do you tell great stories? Is that really it's to sell, entertain, and educate. Stories and narratives are way better than PowerPoint bullets. Stories solidify abstract concepts and simplify complex messages. I think we've all experienced confusion when trying to understand a concept or a new idea, and stories provide a way around that. They take these lofty, non-tangible things and relate it to concrete ideas. They bring people together, right? Stories are universal in language. They can make us feel human and connect each other there, and they inspire and motivate. So they make us more human. And as companies, when we become transparent and authentic, it really helps investors and customers connect with us, right? So, and it also can help us attract customers, receive investment, and really recruit employees to our firms. And last, good stories are entertaining. They're educational, universal, and organized, entertaining. Good stories keep listeners engaged. Like, don't be afraid to share something personal. I've shared a lot with you in terms of I watch a lot of reality TV from that standpoint. They're educational. Don't be afraid to drop knowledge in these and share lessons learned. Organize, they help convey messages and help people absorb it, and they're memorable, right? And the one thing I'll say about memorable is you always want someone to walk away with that something they'll always remember, that sort of star moment there. And always try to end on a positive note or a takeaway. And last but not least, I know we're getting short on time here. I'm just going to share with you the 10-20-30 rule. Because of this audience, I'm assuming you're pitching to innovate to investors. So this sort of pitch rule is sort of tailored just for you in an investor audience. So first, 10 slides. This is the optimal number of slides you should have in your presentation. 10 slides, that is it. You're all smart people in this session, and you're probably thinking to yourself, like, this dude talking to me right now is a hypocrite. He's shared like 40 slides with me. So how can I explain this to you? Well, I guess I'm not you pitching to investors right now, so I guess I can have a little bit more. But for you in your communications, you get 10 slides. That is it. You have 20 minutes. You should be able to go through your 10 slides in 20 minutes. Even if you have an hour time slot with investors, there are a lot of time spent on discussion, rich communications and interaction. So make sure you can get through your slides in 20 minutes. And the last thing here is the optimal size. A font is 30 points. In a general rule of thumb, I've heard this in the past and think this is good sort of share, but basically tailor the font size to the oldest person in the room. So divide their age by 2. So if you're pitching to a 60-year-old, 30-point font. Pitching to a 50-year-old, 25-point font. In the one day that you may be pitching to an 18-year-old venture capitalist, it is on that day and that day only can you use a 9-point font when you are pitching. And last thing is sort of the bonus round here of the deck, just to close out. My advice, just keep grinding away and ignore any of the haters that are out there with you today. Being an innovator and being innovative is not for the faint of heart. The more innovative you are, the more folks are going to try to put you down. They're going to try to devalue your ideas. And just because folks have been successful in the past, or they are in charge of investing large sums of money, does not mean they're right, nor does it often mean that they're even smart in that sense. And prior success does not mean future success. Look at the first quote here, Thomas Watson. There is a world market for 5 computers. I think I have 5 computers in my home. So basically I have the world market for that. Ken Olsen, he is you may not be familiar with him, but Bill Gates called him the pioneer of the computing industry. Ken stated that there is no reason anyone would want or to have a computer in their home. I'm sure all of you have many computers in your home today. And according to the pioneer of computing, there's no reason for you to have that. Steve Ballmer, the former CEO of Microsoft, there is no chance the iPhone is ever going to gain significant market share. Okay, that one's obviously wrong. And then last is Steve Jobs, right? Subscription models for music business are bankrupt. I think you got the second coming of Jesus himself available on subscription, and it wouldn't be successful. I think it's safe to say with the growth of Spotify and even the launch of Apple Music, that was a miss. So, and the challenge is these folks have been all super successful, all super innovative on specific curves, but that does not mean that they see the next curve coming on the horizon. So my advice, just keep grinding away and ignore those haters out there. So with that, those are the essentials of innovation for you. That's all I have for you today. As I stated earlier, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure to spend the morning with you. I was really looking forward to this talk since it was scheduled and booked. I absolutely love talking technology and innovation. So if anyone wants to talk more, my email address is here. I truly do mean this. Send me a note there. I am fully vaccinated now and open to grabbing coffee, just chatting. So please do not be shy. So with that, I thank you again. I hope you had as much fun as I did this morning presenting with you. So thank you so much for the time and being here with me.
Thanks, Kyle. We really appreciate it. The slides, you can attach them to the talk in Whova if you want. And there was a number of questions that came up as well. We don't have time for them now. Okay. But if you could maybe hop in and interact, there's a lot of interest. So thank you so much for your time and for your expertise. Be well. And
all right.
We're going to tee up for the next session soon. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.